Hey friends, welcome. This channel is called Planted in the South, and why am I calling it Planted in the South? Well, I eat a whole food plant-based diet, and I actually live in the South. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and have for 23 years. I switched to a whole food plant-based diet due to health reasons, and I think it's the best diet there is. You can lose weight on other diets, but this is the easiest. You can eat more food on a whole food plant-based diet, and if you always have healthy food on hand, you're always eating healthy food and low calorie density food, and you don't gain weight at all. So, and you feel satisfied. So what I've been doing recently, the holidays are starting to come around the corner here. It's the beginning of November. It's November 9th, 2025. And I've been going through recipes, thinking about Thanksgiving. I won't be making a meal. I won't be having a meal here. I'll be going to my daughter's house, but since no one else eats like I do, I'll probably carry my food over there, and then I'll still have some here that I can enjoy for that long holiday weekend. So, but what I've been doing is going through recipes, and since I've been cooking so long, I was married for 18 years and was our main cook in that relationship, and then after the divorce, I still have to cook for myself, stuff to eat, right? So anyway, I'm also a recipe collector. So I have all these recipes here in this box that were family favorites for many, many years. And then now I have the plant-based recipe box that's a lot smaller. But what I used to do when I made a recipe and everybody liked it, or it became a family favorite, I would laminate it. So I was going through here, looking at all the categories here, and I found this recipe called Cranberry Pumpkin Bread. Now this recipe, I just know by looking at it, was from Taste of Home magazine. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but I was a subscriber. I think somebody bought the subscription for me, and we kept renewing it. But it was a really good magazine. I used to enjoy getting these little cards they would put in the middle, and you cut them out if when we tried. Well, anyway, if it's in this box of laminated, it was a family favorite or somebody liked it. And so what I'm trying to do now, since I'm on a whole food plant-based diet, is look at these recipes. Since I'm a collector, I'm not going to get rid of these. There's too many memories, and I can look at a recipe, know where I got it, who gave it to me, and there's memories associated with some of these. So, but anyway, this recipe, I'll give you both recipes. In case you're not on a whole food plant-based diet, it's still a good bread either way. But my new version is a lot healthier for you. So, excuse me, the original recipe was called for 1 cup of canned or cooked pumpkin, 1 cup of sugar, a half a cup of milk, 2 eggs, a 1/4 cup butter or margarine melted, 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, half a teaspoon of ground ginger, 1 cup of walnuts, and 1 cup fresh or frozen cranberries. Now, those last 2 items are optional. The walnuts are optional. If you don't like nuts, you can change out nuts if you're allergic to whatever. But so anyway, I'll put this recipe and my updated one, plant-based, whole food plant-based, in the description below. So you don't have to worry about writing those down. But so when I've been doing this a lot, going through old recipes and trying to recreate them so that I can actually eat them now. So we start at the top. The canned pumpkin, no need to do anything with that. 1 cup of sugar. I don't use regular white sugar anymore. I did buy this date sugar, which is pretty good. I used to order it online, but I actually was at Costco yesterday and I found it at Costco. So I bought a couple bags. I don't use it a lot because I don't eat a lot of baked goods anymore. And if I do, I try to get my sweetness from fruit. But so we're gonna swap out the sugar there. Half a cup of milk can be a half a cup of your favorite plant milk. That's easy. 2 eggs. You can use a flax egg. You can Google that. It's just basically ground flax meal and water mixed together until it thickens. I'm using, because I had this on hand, this Bob's Mill egg replacer. It's pretty good. Now this is going to be hard as a rock because I mixed it up a little while ago, but I'm still going to use it. 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I don't use all-purpose flour. Sometimes I do use whole wheat flour or whole wheat pastry flour. What I'm using today is I just took some gluten-free oats that I get at Costco, the sprouted oats, and I ground them up in the Vitamix and made my own flour. So I have 2 cups of oat flour here that I'm going to swap out. And then baking powder, cinnamon, soda, all of that stuff is fine. And then the only other swap out I did, I don't have cranberries yet. I think there might be a bag in the freezer from last year, but what I'm going to use today is dried cranberries, and I'm going to actually soak those in water. So hold on just a second. Let those reconstitute. I've been making this, I've been trying several versions of this, and I usually soak those in hot water first, but it'll be fine. And then also I forgot to mention the butter. Butter, a lot of times you can swap out mashed banana. It doesn't always work. Sometimes if it's in cookies, it'll make them really flat. But in this, it works. So I've got a very ripe banana that we're going to use in place of the butter. So the updated version won't have any eggs, butter, or all-purpose flour. So we'll go ahead and get started. Calls for 1 cup of pumpkin. So I'm using Trader Joe's pumpkin. And it's going to be about half of this can. Now, I'll tell you, I'm using Trader Joe's. It's awfully light in color. It is organic. I'm used to the Libby's, which is a bit darker, but this is just fine. So to that, we're going to add our sugar. I've got a cup of date sugar that I'm using. If you're not afraid or don't mind using regular sugar, go ahead and use that. Got that. And then half a cup of milk. Now, for some reason, when I measured this out, I really thought when I was making this, I was using a whole cup of milk. We'll see. I'm going to pour half of this in and see how the batter is here. Mix that up. Okay, and then we're going to add our egg replacer. So basically, just like you're making, a standard recipe from the standard American diet, where you mix your butter and your eggs and your sugar together. We're going to mix that all together. Now, the date sugar does have a little bit of lumps in it, so I'm going to switch to a whisk real quick and make sure I get all of those out. And I'm going to add the banana. I'm going to mash that up. Now, typically, when you're swapping out banana for butter in a recipe that it'll work in, you do equal. So I tried this with just doing a 1/4 cup of banana. I measured it out, and it was good. It worked. The bread held together, but I found that the bread was somewhat dry, because what happens is the ground oats, they'll actually soak up a lot of the liquid in your recipe if you're swapping out oat flour. So you might have to adjust the liquid, but I just ended up putting the whole banana in there, and it worked. This last batch that I made was one of the best. So, and I had used the whole banana in it, so that way you don't have to waste it. You don't have to either eat it or put it in the freezer. You can just put it in here. Get all those chunks out. All right, so here I've got the flour, and here I've got the cinnamon, ginger, and nutmeg. We're going to mix that together. And then we're going to add half a teaspoon of baking soda. And 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, I typically don't add salt to food. I know a lot of whole food plant-based people use salt-free baking powder. I don't have that. But my sodium is always low when I get my blood work done, so I don't think it's gonna be a problem today to use. And then all we're gonna do, oops, try not to get it all on the counter like I did. I mixed that in. We're gonna blend the dry into the wet ingredients just like you would normally do. All fold it in. So let me know if you're on a whole food plant-based diet. Do you try to recreate recipes that were your favorites before switching over? Or, you know, I do, since I'm a recipe collector, I have now a lot of whole food plant-based recipes. I've got some in here in this box that I've liked, that I've written out, and then I've got so many printouts in a drawer. And I try to, what I do now is I have the standbys like most people do, but then I'll try something new, and if I like it, what I do is I'll write it on this little 4x8 or 3x5 card, and then I tape it to the inside of the cupboard, and then I know that's a tried and true recipe, and I've got it at hand right away. I don't have to search for it. Each cupboard has its own category. One is for salad dressings, one is for meals and soups, and one is for desserts. Just like that. So, I'm going to go ahead and add, because like I said, those oats are going to soak up some of that water. I'm going to add a little bit more of that plant milk to it. And actually today I'm using soy milk. I don't know if I said that. I like the Trader Joe's soy milk because it's only soybeans and water. There is no other gums or additives to that. That looks pretty good, actually. Now, I'm gonna drain real quick most of that water off the cranberries. Now, I did also add some golden raisins to those cranberries, which I thought would be a good addition. And then I like walnuts, so I'm gonna add walnuts. If you don't like walnuts, leave them out. Since I have so many loaves of these, which you can freeze this, by the way. It freezes really well, but I don't have a lot of room in my freezer currently. I only have one freezer, but this is probably going to go to work with me tomorrow. All right, do I have everything? I think I do. Now, this was the first time I've used that Trader Joe's pumpkin, and it is quite light. I'm just so used to that dark orange color of the national brand Libby's, I think it is. All right, so it says to put it in a greased 9x5x3 loaf pan. We're not going to do that. At least I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use a silicone loaf pan. And I've got the oven preheated to 350 degrees. So we'll get that in the loaf pan. Smooth it out, make it look good. Try not to waste any. It doesn't rise too much. So this size pan is just perfect. I do try to smooth it out. Now, the original recipe says to bake it at 350 for 70 minutes. I think it's due to the fact, well, this version with the oat flour, I will tell you it's done within 40 minutes. I checked it at 35 each time, and the last time I made it, I'm sorry, 30 minutes, and then I took it out at 35 this last time, and that's plenty. I wouldn't let it go any longer than that, but check it. Set your timer for 30 minutes, check it. I touch it, and it feels firm. And then I take it out, and I let it sit in this pan for about 10 minutes, and then since it's silicone, it comes out quite easy. And I'll see you back when it comes out. Okay, we're back. I set the timer for 30 minutes, checked it, and it was almost done. I set it for another 5 minutes, so a total of 35 minutes. Took it out, set another timer, put it on the cooling rack, set it for the timer for 10 minutes, and I just took it out, and it looks pretty good. It's a nice shaped loaf. got some cracking on the top, but you know what? So did their picture. Their picture had a big cavern on the top, or whatever you would call that. Anyway, so we're gonna cut it and see what we got. The house, let me tell you, the house smells really good. And that's one way when you're baking something, you can usually tell when it's getting close to being done because you start smelling it, and that's a good way to know that it's almost done. So just set your timer for 30 minutes, check it. But I think it's amazing that it's not taking the full 70 minutes. Now it is quite moist with the banana, but it's a pretty good loaf. I've been enjoying it with some coffee in the morning with a little soy milk. But the oats, and it is a little bit denser, probably a loaf than if you use all-purpose flour. But and if you use all-purpose flour, go ahead and use that. You just have to adjust the amount of banana. I don't think you need as much banana, but anyway, give it a try. And even if you're not plant-based, maybe give it a try and see. I'm going to take this to work tomorrow. Well, this part that I didn't touch. And maybe not even tell them it's plant-based and see what they say. But I've got several loaves of this. Some are gonna have to go in the freezer. But I've been enjoying this. So I think the remake of this classic recipe from Taste of Home, from a regular recipe into a plant-based, was a success. And I was digging around in this box of old favorites, and I found some frosted ginger cookies also from Taste of Home, and cranberry oatmeal cookies from Taste of Home, which these are going to be pretty easy because since I use oats. But the kicker here is probably going to be, this called for 1.5 cups of butter, and this called for 1 cup of butter. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go with banana in that, all banana in that or not, but because at some point you don't want it to taste like banana if it's not supposed to be banana, right? And you don't taste banana. I don't taste banana. I taste the pumpkin in here. And I also mentioned that the Trader Joe's pumpkin, canned pumpkin, was so much lighter, and I think that's probably because they just use organic pumpkins and not some other kind of a squash like maybe Libby's or something. Since they make so much, they must use something that's a little bit darker. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked it, give me a like, maybe a subscribe, and let me know if you try it, if you're plant-based, where you live, because I would love to have a community that I could talk to, because since I'm on my own island here by myself doing this plant-based diet, but I've learned a lot just from watching other people and what I found on the internet. So be kind to yourself, others, animals, and the planet, and thank you. Have a good day.